this concept of not learning from the mistakes of the past is about more than one topic. What other examples would you point
well, loads,
to?
For example. The great thing about the narrative of the news, it repeats itself. And we look at things like Partygate, you look at the drip feed, and again I spoke about this.
The drip feed?
The drip feed are things like photos. So if you take, and you say, maybe take all the way back to Matt Hancock, and the revelation that he was having this affair, and all sorts of questions. I raised the question beforehand because nobody's talking about it. You have to ask yourself, a minister in his office, all of a sudden, that footage from one of the most secure buildings in the world ends up on the desk of an editor of a major newspaper. For me, of course, there are all sorts of other questions as well. You should be asking that question. The other question I would ask is that took place on May the 6th. It wasn't until June the 26th that it got published. So you suddenly say, well, why was there that delay? And all this sort of timing is extraordinary. So I always say, look, ask the question.
But you never get the answers, and if you do, it'll be a lie.
Well, you say that. I can give you I can suggest answers.
Go on.
Is there a way in which we could look at that, the date on the event and the date of its publication, and say that there was a well-meant, well-meaning reason why it happened the way that it did, rather than necessarily assuming that it was only for nefarious reasons?
I think you're absolutely right, and in questioning everything, my background as a lawyer, as a barrister, you're trained to represent every possible side. So, and to be fair, there are legitimate reasons it might have been there, and lots of people turn around and say, well, hang on, it's hypocrisy, it's outrageous, you do this, it's in the public interest. If I were representing him, for example, you might say, well, he was in a bubble, because he'd had an affair for a little while, so did he break the rules is a different question. But it does raise all of those questions, and they're all legitimate. So without presupposing what the answers might be, we should turn around and say, let's at least ask those questions. I would like to know what happened with that. I would also like to know, when we talk about drip feeding with Partygate, I know there are photos. The most photographed home probably in the world. You've got cameras everywhere. We've got all those photos now. Why are they being drip fed? I said at the time, and there will be more. There'll be more penalty notices, and there'll be more sort of reaction to that sort of stuff. Why are they being drip-fed? And I can tell you that because they want to make it part of the narrative. So who is leaking this, and why are they leaking it? Both of those are legitimate questions.